I'll be taking you through the presentation from Ukucha in terms of who we are and where we are currently from a development perspective. KSHA ITZ was established in terms of the Manufacturing Act, and that has since been superseded by the SEZ Act of 2014. We gained our operator permit in 2007. The first phase of our development was the planning phase, and this took us through from 1998 to 2001. We then moved on to the stage whereby we were focusing on the actual construction, the design and the construction of the zone, and that too has taken us a good 10 years really to get to a point whereby we can say that from a core development area perspective, there is a portion of the ITZ that is fully developed. In 2014, we were looking at where we are in terms of our actual development, of how we have come. We were starting to embark on the actual operationalization of the SEZ, and we felt that there was a need for us to diversify our portfolio at that time, because at that time it became clear that from a sustainability, the SEZ wasn't going to give us the profits that we needed with immediate effects. So in 2004, we then formed our implementing arm of the business, which is our projects. In 2005, the ITZ became operational. This was with the introduction of our first investments onto the zone, which was dynamic commodities and acoustics. And from a growth perspective, actually, they fall on two very extreme sides of the coin, whereby acoustics was a tier supplier to the automotive industry in South Africa, and with the 2007-2008 actually downturn in the economy, they actually suffered greatly and eventually ended up closing. On the other hand, dynamic commodities exist within the zone today. They are actually our flagship project. They are a South African-born company, born and bred actually within the Eastern Cape in Port Elizabeth. It was a family business that they decided to take their products to the export market. Maybe you've seen this in the shops. It is an ice cream it's a frozen ice cream that is within a shell. They actually employ 90% women within their business, and they also do 90% exports from South Africa, and their product is marked in Europe and in Asia as the best ice cream for those particular regions. In 2009, the port of Ngqura became operationalized. So when we started within the zone, there was nothing. It was a farming area. There was no port. There was nothing, actually. So in 2009, we then, not us, Transnet though, the port of Ngqura became operationalized. And at that point in time, we also thought that it's a good time for us now to embark in consulting, but from an SEZ perspective, because there was a request from our stakeholder and many others to assist other SEZs that were coming up at the time. At the time when we were established, there were 4 SEZs, but unfortunately at this point in time, not all 4 had reached the same growth path. So we then undertook the SEZ consulting work as well, and our first clients were our colleagues from Richards Bay ITZ, where we helped them with their feasibility studies, and we continued working within this particular program, just assisting around the country. In 2014, FAW became operational. For us, that was a huge milestone because FAW was actually our first FDI investor. So from an FDI perspective, we'd really cracked almost that thing that we have been looking for. And I think there was a lesson within FAW in terms of how we approached it, in that we started communicating with them from overseas, not knowing that in fact they've got a partner, a local partner in South Africa who is VWSA. So from a CDC perspective, we have 45 operational investors. Of these 45 operational investors, 20 of them are international companies and 25 of them are actually South African companies. We operate the Coega SEZ here, and we operate the Nelson Mandela Logistics Park, which is adjacent Volkswagen South Africa in Uitenhage, which is 20 kilometers from here. To date, we have created 18,366 jobs. Of those, 8,210 are operational and 11,192 are construction-based jobs. Within the SEZ, we have 4 customs-controlled areas. These really help in reducing costs for the investors, and it is something that especially FDI investors really look for within an SEZ. And in terms from a training perspective, we have 85,886 people that have been trained within the zone since inception. We have our own training and development center within the zone, and this really helps the investors as well when they come through, because they find comfort in that the skills that they are actually looking for, they will be able to source in the local market. From a sector perspective, we have 9 sectors within the zone. We look at chemicals, we look at automotive, we look at the energy sector, agro-processing, metals, maritime sector, logistics, services, and we look at trade solutions and training and development for the zone. One of the elements that we found really works in terms of investor confidence is for investors to be comfortable and really feel comfortable in terms of your own ability to deliver. So what we have undergone through, we've gone through a lot of training over the years from a resource perspective, and internally we've also have various ISO standards that we conform with. This gives our investors comfort that from a global benchmark perspective, that indeed we can operate in the same playing grounds as your European and your Asian SEZs. We thought we would share a bit about some of the projects that we are having. The first one is SEMZA, which is an Indian cement manufacturing plant. SEMZA, from an investment perspective, they've invested 600 million into the plant here within the SEZ. They've actually built the plant themselves because it's a special purpose from a structure perspective, because the cement has to be incubated and the other environmental factors that needed to be taken into consideration. We have HELA here as well. HELA is actually an expansion from the business they were doing at the logistics park in Uitenhage, and when they needed to expand, they expanded to the SEZ. We also have Engineering, which is a black industrials project within the zone. They haven't started operations as yet, but they are on their way. From a project being implemented, for those who haven't been to the Coega SEZ, one of our biggest projects at the moment is the bike project, where there is 11 billion rands worth of private sector investment into the project and 242 million rands worth of government investment into the project. The bike investment is by far the biggest investment South Africa has has been able to attract from an automotive perspective in 40 years. It is also a project that all shares of government really worked together in order for us to be able to achieve what we have today. Our KSHA is also one of our projects that is within Zone 5. It is a medical facility, and that facility, the investment that has gone in there from a private sector perspective is 100 million, and a public sector perspective, government has invested 68 million. One of the things that we've tried over the years is a multi-user facility within the SEZ. This is the phase 2 of that facility. This is meant really for your smaller investors who do not have the momentum as yet to put in those big sums from an investment perspective. So it gives them a platform to almost test whether their business case is going to work and how well it's going to work. From a KSHA perspective, it has worked very well. And indeed, at the current moment, we are busy with developing phase 2, or with constructing phase 2 of the actual facility, of which we plan to have it operational by June this year, and of which almost 80% of that has already been, we've already secured investors for. Within the SEZ, we have some transformational projects. Those are those projects that we think would be game changers, not only for the city of Port Elizabeth or the Eastern Cape as a province, but for South Africa as a whole. One of those is our aquaculture development zone, which is based in Zone 10. It is 440 hectares, and there we foresee a possibility of 5,000 jobs when it becomes operational. What we found is that with transformational projects, it's very important to get the business cases as ready as possible for the investors. So what we've done is that we've undertaken certain pre-feasibility studies that are needed for the aquaculture zone, and of those, the environmental impact assessment has been completed, and we are currently doing the environmental impact assessment for the maritime servitude. We also have the LNG gas hub, which is also another transformational project for us. It is indeed one of our prides that the Coega SEZ has been named as one of the gas hubs by the minister. And there is also a lot of preparatory work that has gone in there and continues to go in there, from a planning perspective, feasibility perspective, and environmental impact perspective. What made us one of the preferred sites for the LNG hub is that we actually have a power plant within the zone. It's a 342 megawatt power plant. It's currently running on diesel, and it's ready for when the gas is ready. From a Coega SEZ perspective, there are some lessons that we've learned over the years, and there are some lessons that I think we will continue to learn, because we're still in this building phase. We are not at the phase yet where we are fully sustainable, so there are various things that we've learned along the way. One of those things is that from a development perspective, you can't use a blanket approach in terms of how you're going to develop your zone. So yes, it might work for certain business cases, but it does not work well for all. And it's very important for you to be able to identify which path you need to take with that particular investment. We found that the strategy of having an anchor tenant was one that is risky. We've had transformational projects that we focused around, and they came the economy turned, there were downturns in the economy, and some left just before they were going to sign. So over the years, we've learned that this anchor tenant strategy is not necessarily the best one for us. So one of the other things that we learned is that you actually cannot custom fit everything for everyone. So it's very important to be able to identify the needs of your investors and be able to provide them with a solution that will work best for them, taking into consideration the current constraints of costs. Along the way, I think it's very important never to take things personal within what we do. There are various stakeholders that are we're all working together in this, and it's very important to understand each other's requirements and each other's needs and where your various stakeholders are coming from when they talk about certain things. From an investment perspective, one of the lessons that we learned was at the beginning we used to almost use a spray and pray approach to investment promotions. We undertook various investment promotion drives globally, and we then realized that maybe a little bit more of marketing research into what we were doing should come into play, and that is what we have been doing of late. There is a saying that says, the art of crossing a river is knowing where the stones are, or asking somebody who knows. From a KSHA perspective, I think we take this to heart, in that our management team surrounds themselves with people who know, or people who can help them know what they need to know. And this is what has been one of the comforting, I think, qualities about us from an investor perspective, in that when they come to the SEZ, the most of the time they can find most of their answers here. Challenges that we face, funding will always be a challenge in terms of the constraints. I think we've gone through most of them. One of the things I think we should highlight is that from an SEZ perspective, there is emergency center within the zone. For us, that is a real challenge. And the other thing is that from a rates and taxes perspective, it becomes a challenge because you acquire this land up front and you have to pay rates and taxes until actually you filled up all the land. So those are one of the things that how you actually bring your land together, one of the thought processes that should go into there would actually be that. Thank you.